The coalition did not march on June 15th. It marched on June 16th because Seraphine spent June 15th making sure 6 sovereign egos could occupy the same southbound road without declaring war on each other before Valdorath did. Kale watched from the command wagon's raised observation platform while she worked. The first problem was Ironmark. Harn wanted northern flank separation written into March order as operational law, not charter appendix. Yarick's general wanted southern column priority on water rights at the second river crossing because Harith had marched longest and suffered most, and did not intend to watch Valdane proxies drink first from wells Harith blood had paid for in year 12. Neither man was wrong. Both men were loud. Seraphine met them separately June 15th hour 8, Harn in the supply annex, Yarick's general in the courtyard where heat could vent through stone rather than into documents. Kale did not attend either meeting. He read disposition reports and listened through Calder's relay summaries and watched Seraphine move between annex and courtyard with the particular economy of someone who had stopped treating political friction as surprise. Harn emerged hour 9. He said to Calder, not to Kale, flank law in March order. Supply parity at River 2. She used my own language back at me. Calder said, good. Harn said, annoying. Good. Yarick's general emerged hour 10. He said to Lyra, who had been stationed in the courtyard with insult duty, water priority Harith first 2 hours River 2. Valdane escort second. Northern column third. She did not apologize for geography. Lyra said, should she? Yarick's general said, no. He looked toward the annex where Seraphine had already turned to the next problem. The second problem was Kalen. Not a problem in the sense of obstruction. A problem in the sense of architecture. The coalition charter gave Valdorath sovereign authority in legal emergency. Kalen could have exercised it June 15th when Lady Stormwind and Valdane's proxy deadlocked over weather course scheduling authority, Thornwald insisting storm calibration teams answered to field commanders during March. Solhaven insisting naval escort timetables could not be revised without guild corridor consent. Deadlock was procedural. Deadlock during March was ammunition for Valdoratha's intelligence. Kalen called the joint leaders session hour 14 in the Merchant Hall's secondary chamber, smaller room, fewer chairs, no balcony audience. He opened with 2 sentences of context. Then he stopped talking. He looked at Seraphine. He said, political structure for resolving this without reopening charter. Your judgment. Not perform deference. Not abdication. The room went still the way rooms went still when someone with legitimate authority chose not to spend it. Seraphine did not thank him. She did not acknowledge the weight of what he had done. She said, Thornwald Corps scheduling answers to Lady Stormwind during weather windows. Naval escort revisions require Valdane proxy signature within 6 hours of notification. Field commanders receive binding schedule copies before dawn movement. Disputes escalate to me before they escalate to Hall. She wrote it on the central slate. She handed the chalk to Kalen. He signed beneath her language without adding royal preamble. Lady Stormwind said, acceptable. Valdane proxy said, acceptable with corridor liability footnote. Seraphine said, footnote in appendix. March order unchanged. Valdane proxy signed. Kale stood at the chamber's rear wall and felt something in his chest arrange itself without permission. He had observed 19 years of political acts, Crest's careful cruelty, Reform Council's procedural survival, Ironmark ceasefire arithmetic, demon negotiation under white banner, coalition assembly under snow. He filed Kalen's choice as the most generous political act he had observed. Generous because it cost something real. Generous because Kalen had learned, without poetry, that sharing authority was not shrinking. Generous because Seraphine treated it as ordinary and thereby made it durable. He did not say that to anyone. Admiration, when he let it show, showed in where he looked and how long he stayed watching. He stayed watching the whole session. The third problem was Veth's envoy and human mapmakers. Autonomy verification required Demon Peace faction march routes drawn on coalition maps with boundaries humans had historically mislabeled on purpose. Veth's envoy brought corrected notation. Valdane's cartographer challenged 2 junction labels. The argument was technical and ancient and had killed people in quieter wars. Seraphine sat between them with demon language copy and human trade corridor copy aligned edge to edge. She did not translate sentiment. She translated jurisdiction. Hour 17 the maps matched. Veth's envoy signed. Valdane cartographer signed with the expression of a man swallowing professional pride because survival was a heavier meal. The fourth problem was food. Veth said so. Veth said it to Kale hour 18 while checking his core observation log in the wagon's medical alcove, routine monitoring, March stress baseline, no drama. She said, political center is also caloric center. Someone is going to collapse if delegates eat pride instead of grain. Kale said, Seraphine. Veth said, Seraphine eats when Calder puts food in her hand. Delegates perform fasting as negotiation. Perform later. Eat now. Kale sent Calder with instructions. Calder returned hour 19 with the particular calm of a man who had solved a problem by standing in doorways until people ate. The fifth problem was Gareth. Gareth could not climb to the observation platform without cost visible in breath and grip. He did not need to climb. He Saturday, June 15th, hour 20 in the wagon's lower compartment with master map pinned across two crates and said, they're arguing about banners again. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, she'll fix banners. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, Kaelin gave her the room. Kale said, yes. Gareth looked at him. Gareth said, you noticed. Not question. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, don't perform noticing. Useful noticing only. Kale said, filed. Gareth's mouth moved, not quite smile, acknowledgement that filing was the closest Kale came to confession. Gareth said, march tomorrow. Less poetry, more road. Kale said, yes. June 15th, hour 22 Seraphine found Kale on the platform. Below, campfires multiplied along Valdorath South Road. 350,000 people did not camp small. She held charter appendix copy and march order draft. She said, flank law, water priority, weather scheduling, map corrections, banner precedence by kingdom alphabet with Thornwald Storm Corps exception. He said, yes. She said, Kaelin signed under my language. He said, I saw. She said, good. He said, yes. She did not ask what he meant. She did not ask whether Kaelin's deference changed coalition math. She asked, disposition. He said, advance column ready June 16th, hour 5. Supply train staggered. Intelligence fusion active. Veth channel open. She said, unknown humans? He said, 40 diplomacy. 50s. She said, good. One word. Enough. Wind from the south carried dust, and something older road grit from routes that had not carried this many boots in 300 years. She leaned on the rail beside him. Half-inch proximity tolerance. Not disgust. He did not step away. Below, Harn's northern column lanterns aligned with Yarek's southern lanterns in a pattern that would have been impossible in year 12. Political center held. Military coordination ready. Partnership visible in function. Not labeled. He watched her watch the camp and understood, without examining the understanding too closely, that the coalition's most fragile architecture was not the charter. It was the woman who made 6 kings and sultans and council leaders believe their concerns were heard while acting in concert. Precision. Deliberate. Devastating when aimed at problems instead of people. He had seen her aim it at Crest. He had seen her aim it at demon champions. He was seeing her aim it at continental survival. Admiration stayed open because hiding it would have been dishonest and because she was not performing for him. She was working. June 16th, hour 5 the coalition marched south. Seraphine's role did not diminish with distance from Valdorath. It intensified. Every mile south added friction, supply jealousy, route precedence, autonomy verification at demon column junctions, prayer schedules, weather delays, intelligence share tier disputes. She managed individually. She managed collectively. Kale managed maps. He watched her manage people and filed the observation where he filed things that changed the interior landscape without changing the record. Night June 16th he wrote in the March ledger, political center operational. Kaelin deferred authority without performance. Seraphine did not acknowledge significance, durability through ordinary treatment. 6 leaders managed. Coalition march south begun. Admiration observed. Not spoken. He did not write her name beside admiration. Some intelligence belonged only in the place where he kept things that changed the map without changing the record. He slept 3 hours. Thus said that was insufficient. He said, yes. March continued. South. Toward Kareth. Toward a fight he was already preparing to understand better than anyone alive and could not yet be sure of winning. 3 weeks was not a long time to move 350,000 people. It was long enough to read everything Kale had been collecting since April, and not long enough to believe any of it fully. The coalition marched south through Valdorath lowlands into the transitional scrub, where human maps stopped pretending the weather knew political borders. June heat arrived in layers, morning cold that lied about the afternoon, dust that found the hinge of jaw and collar before the body finished arguing with sweat. Night wind that carried camp smoke and horse fatigue, and the low constant sound of an army that had decided moving was safer than waiting. Kale rode in the command column's middle third, because middle thirds survived ambush math better than vanguard romance. He did not ride much. He read. The Sovereign Core texts came from Mars' archive chain, pre-fragmentation copies routed through reform vault seals, handwriting of scholars who had called the Eastern Lattice by names modern kingdoms had forgotten. Gareth's compiled marginalia arrived in the wagon's document chest June 18th. 3 new pages, infirmary steady hand, notes bracketing passages Mars copies left opaque. Not force. Recognition. The core does not answer effort. It answers comprehension. Gareth had underlined comprehension twice. Kale read the underline and did not feel comfort. He felt specification. Valdis's notes were older. Not Valdis the person. Kale had no portrait, no biography beyond archive attribution stamps and one irritated comment from a fragmentation-era copyist who disliked Valdis's habit of numbering arguments instead of naming them. The notes were pre-fragmentation scholar materials on unified field theory and imperial administrative aura integration, the same error chain Valdorath had built his first empire upon and his second obsession upon. Valdis wrote, Administrative unity binds ledgers. Field unity binds breath. Conflating the two invites catastrophe dressed as ceremony. 300 years later Valdorath had dressed catastrophe as ceremony again. Kale read Valdis beside Mar beside Gareth beside Demon Court fragments Veth sent through Koval notation, pepper weights, route stamps, fractional ounces in the third column encoding troop discipline reports that should not have been possible in demon armies. June 19th packet decoded at dawn. Advanced columns report synchronized rotation intervals. Not domain rivalry pattern. Central clock. Phantom command. Kale sent return notation through Calder's freight office. Duplicate lot weights on grain invoice. Deniable routing. Torrent correspondence southbound within 36 hours. Acknowledged. Coalition march position attached. Request tomb perimeter scout summaries when available. Veth returned June 21st. Tomb avoided 3 centuries for field reasons and superstition. Infrastructure not abandoned. Roads repaired. Supply depots active. Phantom treats tomb as capital not curse. Scouts unwilling closer than 8 miles. Aura distortion increases with proximity. 8 miles. Kale pinned tomb circle on master map and drew phantom supply lines converging like veins toward a heart humans had called dead and demons had called forbidden. The march was translation in motion. Harn's northern flank maintained separation codes without treating separation as insult. Yarek's southern column took water priority at River 2 as promised and did not gloat. Lyra reported the absence of gloating as morale victory, which was accurate and embarrassing. Lady Stormwind's Weather Corps lost 2 days to storm calibration June 20th through 21st. Seraphine revised march order without reopening charter. Thornwald marched annoyed and on schedule. Valdane escort detachments guarded guild corridor wagons with the alertness of men who knew trade survival and battlefield survival had merged into one ledger. Veth's Demon Peace faction column moved on corrected map boundaries, autonomy verification checkpoints at junctions where older wars had started over mislabeled stone. Kale translated position reports into joint command grammar from the wagon's map table while the army translated itself south mile by mile. Thess monitored his core every 72 hours. June 18th, stable, hairline cracks unchanged, no distortion logged. June 21st, stable, elevated stress baseline, sleep debt noted in margin. June 24th, stable, stress baseline higher. Thess added eat without punctuation because punctuation implied optional. He ate because Calder enforced food and because argument cost time. Gareth visited when stairs tolerance and wagon stops aligned. June 20th, hour 16, map table, 2 crates, cane hooked on wagon rail. He looked at Valdis's numbered arguments. He said, scholar hated poetry too. Kale said, useful hatred. Gareth said, Valdorath read this? Kale said, likely. Built opposite conclusion. Gareth said, immortality makes opposite conclusions expensive for everyone else. Kale said, yes. Gareth traced phantom supply lines with one finger, no tremor, core burned out but hand steady when purpose existed. He said, you understand him better than Hall does. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, understanding doesn't guarantee winning. Kale said, I know. Gareth said, good. Not comfort. Calibration. Gareth left before the wagon rolled. Damien Road Eastern Column check-ins June 22nd and 24th. Earnest reports on morale, prayer circles, a Silverlight reformed detachment that had started teaching card games with rules too complicated for war. Damien said, they're scared. Kale said, yes. Damien said, they're still here. Kale said, yes. Damien said, that counts. Kale said, yes. Damien left with the expression of someone who had deposited evidence in the correct office. Lyra enforced humidity on document chests and insult on despair. June 23rd, she said, you look like a man marrying a folio stack. Kale said, tactical marriage. Lyra said, divorce before Kareth or Thess will file paperwork. Kale said, yes. She left. Humidity remained controlled. Seraphine's political work did not pause for road dust. She resolved banner precedents at a river crossing June 19th. She mediated demon language prayer schedule conflict June 22nd, hour 9, without treating either side's devotion as lesser. She held charter enforcement session in a tent June 24th while rain turned supply road to mud. Kalen attended, signed emergency reroute authority, did not reclaim pen when Seraphine wrote language. Kale received summaries through Calder. He did not attend. Partnership visible in function. Not labeled. Sufficient. Night June 25th, the coalition crossed into the transitional belt where Valdorath maps labeled approach Kareth human frontier and demon maps labeled north of the old capital Scar. Campfires stretched horizon to horizon. Kale stood at map table under canvas roof listening to wind carry distant animal sounds from country that had not heard this many human and demon boots moving in concert since before fragmentation. He read Mars' passage on sovereign recognition again. He read Gareth's marginalia again. He read Valdis's numbered warning again. He read Veth's tomb scout summary again. Understanding accumulated. Understanding was not victory. Understanding was preparation for a fight he saw more clearly than Coalition Hall did. Valdorath's 3-century project, Phantom Command Discipline, Order Human Unknowns, Convergence Logic inverted into Imperial Reset, Tomb Infrastructure revived, Field Distortion increasing with proximity. He understood the enemy's architecture. He understood his own coalition's latency, 6 command cultures, charter enforcement, trust not complete, saint not yet. He could not be entirely sure of winning. That uncertainty did not paralyze. It focused. June 26th, hour 4, he updated March ledger, week 2 south. Kareth frontier approximate 10 days. Text integrated, Mar core copies, Gareth marginalia, Valdis prefragmentation field notes, Veth/Koval phantom intelligence. Tomb capital confirmed active. Fight understood better than anyone in coalition. Victory probability unverified. March continues. He slept 2 hours. Thess logged it. He did not argue. June 28th, the advanced scouts reported first visual on Kareth border ridgeline. Volcanic haze to the south, jungle density to the east, old imperial roadstones emerging from scrub like bones refusing burial. 300 years demons had avoided the emperor's tomb. 300 years humans had called it history. The roadstones said otherwise. Kale looked south and felt the Sovereign Core's quiet warmth, not dramatic, not prophecy, presence that had been there becoming slightly more present with each mile toward the place Valdorath had chosen to finish what convergence had interrupted. Preparation continued. March continued. The fight was no longer abstract. It was 10 days away. Then less. Then contact. He closed the folio stack. He opened disposition reports. Less poetry. More road. More what came after road ended at Borderstone and First Clash, and the accounting that would not stay theoretical once Phantom Command answered in intervals instead of chaos. He listened to camp settle. South wind carried ash smell from country that remembered empire. March had one job left. Deliver the coalition to Contact. Contact would deliver the rest. Contact came July 3rd, year 15 at the Kareth border seam where human frontier maps ended and demon avoidance maps had lied for 3 centuries. The advance force was 92,000, Valdorath Spearhead, Hareth Southern Shock, Thornwald Lightning Calibration Teams, Demon Peace Faction Vanguard under Veth Liaison Command, compact detachments Kale had placed where latency would hurt least. The main coalition body was 3 days north supply weight, political center, the mass that turned commitment into geography. Kale rode with advance coordination because advance was where misunderstanding became corpses fastest. Dawn July 3rd smelled of volcanic grit and wet jungle decay, 2 climates arguing in the same breath. The ridgeline ahead held no banners at first light. Then banners. Not domain colors competing for precedence. One pattern repeated at intervals, ash-gray field, gold fracture line, central void shape. Kale's intelligence files labeled Phantom Mark. Kale's Sovereign's eye opened at full diamond radius, several miles, not yet battlefield-wide enough. He saw them. 200,000 was an estimate until it was a slope. Demons in formation. Not tribal surge. Not domain rivalry wedges. Lines. Intervals. Reserve blocks staged with spacing that assumed someone upstream was counting minutes. Kale had read Veth's reports. Reading had not prepared his body for the wrongness of it. Demon armies did not look like this. Demon culture distributed command through strength contests and domain pride, and the beautiful inefficient chaos of beings who experienced hierarchy as weather. This was not weather. This was architecture. 300 years of planning wearing demon flesh. Harn's northern flank had not yet arrived at border. Yarick's general was present, southern priority earned forward position. Lady Stormwind's weather corps held eastern elevation. Veth Liaison, a Keth domain fighter named only in notation Kale could not pronounce, human addressed as Sarah, commanded Peace Faction Vanguard with autonomy verification authority intact. Kale sent first routing packet hour 6. Hold seam. No pursuit beyond marker stones. Report interval 4 minutes. Phantom Command assumed central. Discipline anomalous. Treat as single will until proven otherwise. Responses arrived with kingdom accents and identical comprehension. Good. Not sufficient. The first clash began hour 8 without ceremony. Phantom Vanguard tested the seam, not full commitment, calibrated pressure on Valdorath Spearhead left and Harris Shock right simultaneously, timing spaced so human commanders would feel 2 crises and 1 instinct to reinforce the latter one. Typical demon tactics assumed reinforcement instinct was exploitable because demon command could not hold 2 synchronized thrusts long enough to punish the mistake. Phantom held both. Kale watched through the eye left thrust aura signatures steady, right thrust steady, reserve block advancing exactly 4 minutes after contact noise peaked. 4 minutes. Someone had counted. He sent correction through chain. Valdorath's left bend not reinforce. Harris Shock hold line. Thornwald eastern elevation. Storm calibration ready. Window 12 minutes. Lady Stormwind's core answered. Ready. Hour 8-minute 12 thunder rolled from clear sky. Calibrated, narrow, aimed at Phantom reserve blocks approach corridor. Reserve slowed. Not broke. Adjusted interval to 6 minutes. Kale filed that adjustment with cold respect. Enemy learning during contact was dangerous. Enemy already learned before contact was worse. Midday the clash thickened. Not battle yet, Kale would not call it battle until main body commitment or tomb objective clarity. This was the first clash. Advance against advance. 92,000 coalition against Phantom forward mass, estimated 60,000 with reserves cycling from ridgeline depth. Coalition held seam. Phantom did not break. That was the draw's first half, defensive success, without offensive collapse of enemy. The draw's second half arrived hour 14 when Phantom shifted pressure to Demon Peace faction vanguard, testing whether autonomy verification troops would fracture when hit by demon-shaped command wearing demon faces. Sarah held. Veth peacefighters held with the grim discipline of beings who understood Phantom was not demon culture, but project. Kale routed compact detachment support into peace faction seam without requiring Valdorath's royal permission, escalation protocol functioning. Phantom pressure increased. Coalition line bent. Did not snap. Kale rode behind Valdorath's spearhead hour 15. Not frontline heroics, coordination proximity. I anchored to physical presence in sector. Gareth was 3 days north with main body. Thess was in field hospital wagon 2 miles back monitoring core through calibrated observation crystal, standard march protocol, combat elevation pending. Calder rode courier relay. Lyra held eastern morale and humidity insults by a runner. Damien was with main body political column, evidence filed that he remained in. Harn arrived northern flank hour 16 with 34,000 IR mark separation intact, flank law functioning, timing late but present. Phantom adjusted to northern arrival within 9 minutes. 9 minutes. Kale updated estimate upward. Hour 17 Phantom committed reserve wedge at Coalition Seam Center, human order unknowns not yet visible, demon lines pure, discipline obscene. Valdorath spearhead took depth casualties. Hera shock absorbed lateral push. Thornwald Core spent second weather window, hail shard corridor, visibility reduction, Phantom wedge slowed. Slowed was not stopped. Coalition seam held at cost measured in blood. Kale saw through the eye as heat signatures cooling and movement vectors stuttering and the particular absence where living aura had been. He directed withdrawal to secondary seam markers, not retreat, reposition, preserve advanced force integrity for main body merge. Yerek's general argued through runner message. Kale answered, hold secondary seam. Main body July 6th. We draw today. We do not break today. Yerek's general answered, understood. Harn answered northern flank. IR mark holds left. Uncomfortable. Useful. Kale filed useful and hated the draw anyway. Sunset July 3rd. The first clash ended the way clashes ended, when neither commander mistook contact for conclusion. Phantom withdrew to ridgeline depth in ordered intervals. Coalition held secondary seam markers. 92,000 remained field effective. Casualty count preliminary. Thess's runners would refine through night. Kale stood on seam stone hour 21 with volcanic haze staining sky and jungle dark pressing eastern flank, and the ridgeline ahead quiet, in the way battlefields went quiet when both sides counted the cost of not breaking the other. Draw. Coalition held. Phantom forces did not break. It would not stay a draw. He knew that with strategist certainty separate from hope. Phantom had tested seams, intervals, autonomy troops, northern arrival response, weather core windows, reinforcement latency. Phantom had learned. Coalition had learned too. Discipline real, command centralized, tomb infrastructure supporting supply depth. Kale's maps had predicted and his stomach had still resented. Seraphine's runner arrived hour 22 with political center message, no charter panic, casualty transparency language prepared, Kalen standing by for joint statement if needed. Kale sent back, advance force intact. Seam held. Enemy unified. Draw. Main body merged July 5th to 6th, full engagement imminent. One word from her through runner return. Good. Not celebration. Acknowledgement that intact was material. Night July 3rd. Kale sat in command tent with maps lit low and casualty preliminary on left and phantom interval notes on right. Gareth's runner message from main body 3 sentences. Heard draw. Held is not one. Don't confuse. Kale sent. Not confused. Gareth sent. Good. Thess entered hour 23, core observation crystal in hand, face carrying field hospital arithmetic. She said, stable. Stress spike logged. Sleep when main body arrives or I will sit on your chest. Kale said, yes. She said, "Casualties are real." He said, "Yes." She said, "Draws become battles." He said, "Yes." She left. He updated ledger July 3rd close. First clash Kareth border. Coalition advance 92K held seam. Phantom forward mass disciplined. Centralized command confirmed in contact. Casualties sustained. Enemy did not break. Draw. Main body merge pending. Will not stay draw. He did not sleep. Main body marched south through dark. 350,000 against 200,000 plus unknown humans. Numbers were material. Material was about to stop being theoretical. He listened to distant camp sounds, wounded breathing, armor repair, demon peace faction singers low and steady, Ironmark flank fires aligning. Coalition held. Phantom did not break. Tomorrow the draw would begin converting into something else. He opened disposition maps for July 4th. Preparation continued. Saint was not yet. Work was now. July 6th year 15 the draw ended. Main body merged at secondary seam markers before dawn, supply train staggered, political center established 2 miles back in fortified tent row, 346,000 field effective after advanced casualties and March attrition Kale had rounded to 350 again because optimism required apology and planning required rounding up. Phantom held ridgeline depth. Order unknown humans still not visible in eye range, gray dotted on maps, present in Kale's assumptions. The second clash was not a test. It was battle. Hour 5 July 6th Phantom committed forward mass with interval discipline. The first clash had calibrated 6-minute reserve cycles, dual pressure seams. Weather core interference anticipated and routed around eastern elevation before Thornwald could reload calibration window. Coalition line took depth loss in Valdorath center within 20 minutes. Harn's northern flank absorbed lateral push with Ironmark separation codes functioning under fire. Yarick's southern shock bled holding ground because bleeding was cheaper than breaking. Veth peace faction seemed bent and held with Sarah's voice audible even at coordination distance. Not shouting technique names, shouting unit numbers, demon culture repurposed into military grammar by necessity. Kale Road coordination column center with Sovereign's eye at Diamond Peak, several miles radius, every movement cataloged, latency accumulating between seeing and routing because seeing was faster than flesh could answer. He sent corrections through chain. For minute round trip average. Too slow. Phantom optimized for 4-minute human confusion. Phantom was not confused. Hour 7 center collapse risk peaked. Valdorath spearhead depth below threshold. Harris shock pinned southern seam. Phantom wedge aimed at coalition command grammar itself, not political tent yet, coordination column vulnerability, the place where Kale's body anchored eye focus. Calder's escort detachment took first contact. Calder lived. 2 did not. Kale felt their absence register in the eye as cooling vectors and did not stop to grieve because grief was a luxury scheduled after survival. He routed northern flank partial wheel. Harn answered with profanity and compliance. He routed Thornwald third weather window early. Lady Stormwind answered costly and fired anyway. Hail corridor opened. Phantom wedge slowed. Not enough. Hour 8-minute 30 Thess's observation crystal flashed red at his belt. Core stress beyond March baseline. Beyond combat elevation threshold. Hairline cracks in his internal architecture widening under load he had been carrying since June and spiking since July 3rd. She had warned him. He had filed warning under later. Later arrived dressed as ridgeline advancing. Kale's breath shortened. Not fear. Capacity. The Sovereign Core answered capacity the way it always answered, not with drama, with presence. Warmth. Quiet. Something already there becoming slightly more present. The question was not spoken in words. It never was. The question was the shape of everything he had read and marched and held since April. Valdorath's unity, Convergence's wound, Fragmentation's cost, Coalition's friction, Seraphine's precision, Gareth's don't waste it, Damien's I'm still in, Lyra's insults, Calder's food, Thess's eat, Harn's uncomfortable useful, Veth's pen sharper than sword, Kalen's unsigned authority shared, 6 kings and sultans and council leaders believing their concerns heard while acting in concert. What do you believe in absolutely? His answer did not arrive as speech. It arrived as recognition. This world, as it is, with all its damage and complexity and fractured people trying, worth protecting. Not perfect world. Not Valdorath's unified empire rebuilt from administrative corpse. Not reset. Not simplicity. This world. The warmth became conviction. Conviction became external. Saint Aura did not announce itself. The battlefield changed texture. Kale's sovereign's eye expanded, not gradually, completely, several square miles, entire engagement geometry. Every boot, and blade, and aura signature, and cooling body, and reserve interval, and supply wagon, and prayer circle, and demon singer, and iron mark flank fire, and political, tent row 2 miles back, and phantom ridgeline depth, and the hollow, where tomb distortion began, 8 miles south. He saw everything simultaneously. Not metaphor. Architecture of perception rebuilt to battlefield scale. Will manifestation, deepest conviction externalized, and the conviction was not domination. It was guardianship of mess. Mess worth keeping. Sovereign's dominion. The first 60 seconds after breakthrough Kale did not command. He stood in coordination column while Calder pulled his horse to halt and Thessa's crystal screamed red, and his body learned the new radius the way a man learned a room after walls moved. He saw Seraphine in political tent row seated, charter copy on table, hands stilled 2 seconds before face settled, deciding something he could not hear. He saw Gareth 3 miles north in main body reserve Kane, map, looking south with expression Kale red as there. He saw Damien with medical runners. He saw Lyra on eastern elevation shouting at someone who deserved it. He saw Harn's northern wheel executing mid-correction. He saw Phantom reserve block beginning 7th minute cycle because enemy command still believed human latency was 4 minutes. Latency was no longer 4 minutes. Not for him. Hour 8 minute 42 Kale spoke through chain. Not one message. Many. Simultaneous routing through commanders who received his direction as specific precise instruction. Valdorath left bend exact degree. Harris shock hold for 90 seconds, then lateral 2 meters. Thornwald core fire secondary corridor now. Ironmark flank will complete before Harn had finished deciding to comply. Beth piece seam shift marker 7. Compact detachment plug gap Calder's escort had died holding. Commanders heard him through runner, signal horn, aura pulse relay Damien's medical corps had improvised. Lady Stormwind's storm calibration teams trained to read coordination crystal flicker Kale had installed June 13th rehearsal without explaining why. He did not explain now. Explanation was latency. Instruction was breath. 250,000 forces did not become puppets. They remained commanders with autonomy and kingdom accents and pride. They became coordinated organism because upstream nervous system finally matched downstream scale. One mind seeing entire battlefield, one will directing without confusion. Without the telephone degradation that Phantom had spent 3 centuries optimizing against. Kale was that nervous system. Not comfortably. Thessa's crystal stayed red. Core cracks widened. Saint maintenance was minutes not hours, power Bible fact filed in body before mind. Minutes were enough if spent without waste. He spent them. Phantom Wedge Hour 9 encountered Coalition Center that bent with impossible timing. Valdorath's spearhead withdrew 3 seconds before Wedge arrival. Harris shock lateral shift completed as Wedge committed. Thornwald Hale corridor opened on Wedge flank exactly at momentum peak. Ironmark will closed northern escape lane Phantom reserve had counted on opening. Wedge broke shape. Did not break army. Phantom adjusted interval to 4 minutes again, disbelief in human correction speed correcting itself. Kale saw adjustment forming in reserve block aura clustering before movement began. He routed preemptive strike into reserve staging ground. Yurek's general received instruction precise enough to feel like hand on shoulder. Advance shock 40 meters. Hold. Fire on my count 3. Yurek's general did not ask how Kale knew. He complied. Reserve staging took damage. Interval broke. Hour 10 political tent row trembled from aura pressure. Saint presence warping ambient field miles around. Power Bible limitation. Cannot hide. Seraphine stood in tent doorway looking south. Kale saw her see him through the eye across 2 miles distance. Not romantic tableau, command verification, political center confirming military center still existed. She raised one hand. Not wave. Signal from year 12 negotiation ridge grammar. Continue. He continued. Gareth's runner could not reach coordination column through battle density. Gareth did not need runner. He stood on reserve slope and felt Saint Aura like weather change and said to no one, there. Not triumph. Recognition. The boy he had trained to see had become seeing itself at scale. Hour 11 Kale's voice through chain slowed, not from confusion, from cost. Thus appeared at coordination column despite battlefield stupidity of medical personnel movement, core crystal in one hand, Calder grabbing her saddle strap with the other. Thus said, minutes left. Kale said, yes. Thus said, make them count. He made them count. Sovereign's dominion held several square miles, every vector, every interval, every phantom adjustment forming before execution, every coalition seemed stress before snap. He directed 250,000 as single mind. Not because they were his. Because this world, damaged, complex, fractured people trying, was worth protecting and protection required coherence latency could not buy. Hour 11 40 Phantom forward mass began ordered withdrawal to ridgeline depth, not route, recognition that human command had ceased to be the category they had prepared against. Kale did not pursue into tomb distortion radius. He routed halt lines, casualty retrieval, seam consolidation, political center notification. Saint Aura began fading, not collapse, recession, will manifestation unsustainable, exhaustion waiting in wings. He felt it leave like wide room becoming normal room. I contracted from battlefield to several miles to Diamond Peak. Still vast. No longer complete. Enough. Hour 13 Kale sat on seam stone while Thess counted core cracks with hands that did not shake and Calder stood guard and battle noise diminished to wounded and repair. He was Saint. The world would know within days. Battlefield knew now. Phantom knew. Coalition knew. He did not announce rank. He breathed. Thess said, stay bullish. Never do that mid-battle again. He said, ideal timing unavailable. Thess said, yes. She said, you answered something. Not question. He said, yes. She did not ask what. Medical confidentiality mixed with professional respect. He looked south toward Tomb Haze. Valdorath's presence not yet visible, near transcendent distortion felt at eye edge, walls that would not yield to Saint perception. This world worth protecting. Battle not finished. Turning point begun. He updated ledger with hand steadier than exhaustion justified. July 6th, Saint breakthrough mid-battle. Will manifestation, sovereign's dominion. Conviction, this world as it is, worth protecting. I battlefield scale. 250,000 directed as single mind. Phantom forward mass withdrew. Maintenance unsustainable. Minutes spent. Core cracks widened. Thus monitoring. Battle continues. He did not write the answer in full. Some convictions belonged in core language, not ledger ink. He closed book. Saint was now. Work remained. The turning point was not a moment. It was a procedure. Kale learned that July 6th hour 14 through hour 19 while Saint receded and Diamond Peak returned and the coalition discovered what battlefield coherence felt like when someone had briefly shown them the ceiling, and then stayed close enough to the ceiling to change how air moved. Phantom had withdrawn to ridgeline depth. Withdrawal was not defeat. It was repositioning toward tomb infrastructure and toward the presence Kale's expanded I had felt at 8 Mile distortion edge, Valdorath not seen, Valdorath felt, near transcendent pressure bending ambient aura like heat above stone. Battle continued on reduced geometry. Turning point continued on expanded grammar. Sovereign's eye at Saint range had lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. Thus logged it. Kale remembered every second without pride. Pride was latency. Memory was material. In those minutes, he had directed approximately 340,000 coalition forces as single mind, not micromanaging every boot. Orchestrating command layer so kingdom accents and domain pride and charter disputes stopped degrading into confusion at the speed Phantom had weaponized for 3 centuries. Human command and control involved latency. Runner delay. Misheard horn. Commander pride. Escalation protocol waiting on royal permission. Telephone degradation with corpses as punctuation. Phantom had optimized against that architecture because that architecture had been correct about every prior war. Kale's architecture was different now. Not because rank made him wise. Because rank made him see. Hour 14, he re-established nervous system function at Diamond Peak, several miles radius, not battlefield complete, still enough to make coalition movement feel like organism instead of committee. He spoke through chain of commanders. Each received specific precise instruction. Harn, northern flank hold elevation 412, refuse lateral push, reserve block behind seam marker 9, commit on horn 2 not horn 1. Yurik's general, southern shock rotate companies 4 and 7, water break 6 minutes, resume pressure angle 17 degrees east, Phantom thinks you will reinforce west. Lady Stormwind, weather window in 22 minutes, narrow corridor, save calibration for reserve cycle not forward mass. Veth liaison Sarah, peace seam shift to marker 12, autonomy verification intact, do not pursue across demon mislabel stone. Valdane proxy through naval escort relay, supply wagons route behind Ire Mark Will path, not center seam, center is casualty retrieval until hour 16. Kalen at political center, charter enforcement hold, casualty transparency release prepared, no royal expansion language in joint statement. Seraphine at political center, no instruction from Kale. She did not need one. She was doing her work. He saw her through eye periphery, delegate mediation, charter copy, hands steady, political center holding, because military center had stopped bleeding confusion into seams. Partnership visible in function. Not labeled. Sufficient. The battlefield changed character hour 15 through 17. Individual units stopped reacting to immediate threats in isolation. Coalition began moving as coordinated organism, northern flank refusal time to southern shock rotation, weather corridor opening exactly as Phantom reserve cycle committed. Peace faction seam shift creating gap Valdorath spearhead plugged before Phantom intelligence could classify gap as exploitable. Valdorath's army was unified. Valdorath's army was disciplined. Valdorath's army had spent 3 centuries planning for human confusion. Valdorath's army had not planned for human command without latency. Kale's command had neither latency nor confusion. Not perfection. Friction remained. Harn still swore. Yurik's general still argued after compliance. Lady Stormwind still marked weather windows costly. Friction without degradation. Difference mattered. Phantom command adjusted hour 16. Kale saw adjustment forming in ridgeline depth aura clustering, interval compression, attempt to flood seams before coalition rotation completed. He spoke through chain before movement executed. All sectors, preemptive hold 1 minute pass cycle. Then simultaneous push. Count from horn 3. Horn 3 sounded. Coalition held 1 minute. Phantom flood committed into held seams. Then coalition pushed simultaneous, north, south, center, east, timing keyed to his count not their fear. Phantom flood met wall. Not immovable. Coordinated. Flood receded. Damien ran medical relay at eastern elevation, not frontline, communication node, earnest kindness repurposed into battle infrastructure. Kale spoke through Damien's crystal relay to Silverlight reformed detachments. Card game company hold eastern marker 6. You are not decoration. Hold. Damien transmitted. Company held. Damien sent back runner message. They held. Also they are still scared. Kale sent. Good. Fear held with instruction was still holding. Lyra appeared at coordination column hour 17. Unauthorized movement thus, would yell about later. Humidity enforcement abandoned for battlefield stupidity. She said, you sound like a map talking. Kale said, yes. Lyra said, keep talking. She left. Morale through insult filed. Gareth reached coordination column hour 18 Kane. Reserve slope walk become 3-mile walk because their required presence. He looked at Kale. He said, minutes. Kale said, 11:40. Gareth said, enough. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, again. Kale said, not yet. Enough for now. Gareth said, good. Gruff economical loyalty, staying, watching, not wasting words on pride Kale did not have time to carry. Gareth said, Phantom expected confusion. Kale said, yes. Gareth said, you are not confusing. Kale said, not today. Gareth left before emotion could become conversation. Our 19 Veth channel packet arrived through Battlefield Courier, Koval notation on medical supply manifest, fractional ounces encoding Demon Scout intelligence. Phantom Command Node Ridgeline Depth 3rd Terrace. Not Emperor. Subwill. Emperor Aura Tomb Center. Distortion prevents approach without cost. Kale decoded without leaving Seam Stone. He routed to Thornwald and Valdorath Spearhead. 3rd Terrace node is grammar not God. Press Terrace. Do not pursue into distortion. Pressure applied. Terrace node aura clustering fractured. Subwill broken. Not Phantom defeated. Material. Political center held through hour 19. Seraphine visible in eye periphery managing casualty transparency release and autonomy verification update and Kalen's joint statement language without royal expansion metaphors. Kale did not speak to her through chain. He did not need to. He saw Calder bring her food. He saw her eat because Calder enforced food. He filed that adjacent to battlefield instruction the way he filed things that mattered enormously without examining why. Sunset July 6th Phantom forward elements withdrew again, deeper, toward Tomb Road, toward distortion radius. Coalition held seam markers advanced 2 kilometers from July 3rd position. 2 kilometers was not victory. 2 kilometers was turning point measured in geometry instead of rhetoric. Casualty count refined, Thes's runners, field hospital arithmetic, real dead, real wounded. Kale saw cooling vectors through eye and did not convert them to abstractions. This world worth protecting included dead Calder had ridden beside. Included dead he had directed into gaps, because gaps were arithmetic. Worth protecting did not mean worth protecting cleanly. Mess included cost. Night July 6th hour 21 Kale stood at advanced seam marker with maps and core observation crystal dimmed to amber and coalition fires stretching south toward Tomb Haze. Saint had been minutes. Diamond Peak remained. Sovereign's eye several miles, enough to keep nervous system function alive without catastrophic exhaustion. He spoke through chain one more cycle before rest thus would enforce. All sectors, consolidation, retrieval, sleep rotation where corridor permits. July 7th press continues. Tomb Road objective. Phantom confusion advantage degraded. Responses arrived, kingdom accents, identical comprehension, coordinated organisms settling into night maintenance without becoming committee again. That was turning point sustained. Not single breakthrough moment. Procedure. Seraphine's runner arrived hour 22. Message, political center intact. Charter holds. Casualty transparency released. Kalen statement signed. Autonomy verification updated. Continue. He sent back, continue. One word each direction. Enough. Thus enforced sleep hour 23 with professional tyranny. Core crystal amber. Cracks widened but stable. Saint breakthrough logged. Dominion minutes spent. Eye functional at Diamond Peak. Nervous system procedure established. Kale slept 90 minutes. Thus called it insulting. He called it material. July 7th dawn coalition pressed south again. Phantom resistance stiffened near Tomb Road. Expected, material, not confusion optimized. Kale spoke through commanders. Harn, flank refusal angle 9. Yarrick, shock rotation preemptive. Ladies Stormwind, hold weather reserve. Sarah, peace seam marker 14. Valdane, supply behind flank not center. Battlefield moved as organism. Valdorath's army unified still. Valdorath's army learning still. But latency advantage was gone. Confusion advantage was gone. Coalition command had become something Phantom's 3-century preparation had not contained in its models because its models were built from human wars fought by human nervous systems degrading under pressure. Kale's nervous system degraded under cost, core cracks, exhaustion, minutes not hours of Saint. It did not degrade into confusion. Hour 10 July 7th Kale felt tomb distortion edge approach through eye, 8 miles becoming 7, aura pressure increasing, near transcendent presence louder, walls ahead that would not yield to perception. Phantom Emperor not on main battlefield. Phantom Emperor at center. Performing something. Battle ladder defenses continued. Turning point outer layer 1. Inner layer waiting. He spoke through chain again. 250,000 listened through commanders who trusted instructions because instructions had been precise enough to keep them alive through July 6th. Coordinated organism versus unified enemy optimized for wrong war. Right war was here now. He updated ledger July 7th hour 12, turning point sustained. Sovereign's eye diamond peak, nervous system function active. Chain command precise. Coalition organism versus phantom latency optimization. Enemy subwall nodes fractured. Tomb road approached. Distortion edge 7 miles. Inner battle pending. Seraphine political center intact. Gareth advisory present. Thus monitoring core. Saint minutes spent. Not repeatable yet. He closed ledger. He opened disposition for July 7th afternoon press. Maps updated. Battle continued. Turning point was procedure. Procedure continued. South. Toward tomb. Toward presence that would not be seen until walls forced proximity. Enough for July 7th. Not enough for war's end. Building continued. Same hands. Less confusion. More coherence. Amber proceeding. Enough for now. Enough until Inner Sanctum called. The order squad came through the supply corridor at hour 11 because someone in their chain had studied coalition maps well enough to know that the political center did not move when the military center did. Kale felt them the way he felt everything now, a wrongness in the seam between the Eastern Reserve and the command sector, 1,200 meters from where his voice was routing Thornwald's weather-calibrated thrust. He had 3 seconds to decide whether to break the nervous system he was holding across 4 square miles or trust the architecture Seraphine had insisted on building into the tent itself. He trusted the architecture. He said into the relay channel, voice flat enough that Harn on the northern flank would not hear urgency where there was only arithmetic. Eastern Reserve. Close the supply corridor gap. Do not pursue past marker 7. Command sector holds internal. Seraphine's channel did not open. That was correct. She did not waste breath confirming what he already knew she would do. The command tent was not a tent in any honest sense of the word. It was a merchant house pavilion frame expanded to coalition specifications, double canvas, internal brace lattice, map tables bolted to the floor because maps that moved during a battle were maps that killed people. Inside on the morning of July 7th year 15 sat Kalen with emergency charter copies, Yarek's general with southern casualty ledgers, Valdane's proxy with corridor security tallies, Veth's envoy with autonomy verification clauses still marked in red ink, and Lady Stormwind's scheduling adjutant with lightning core weather windows pinned to a board that had not been updated in 6 hours because weather had stopped mattering to anyone except the core themselves. Seraphine stood at the center table with her rapier sheathed and her hands still. Not because she was calm. Because stillness was how she bought the 2 seconds she needed before action became irreversible. The first explosion was not fire. It was a shaped charge of ordered dark-encoded material designed to breach canvas the way a surgeon's knife breached skin, narrow entry, maximum interior disruption. The inner brace lattice held. The charge had been calculated for a standard military pavilion, not for the reinforcement Calder's engineers had added after Valdorath's assembly because Seraphine had said, without emphasis, that the coalition's political center would be targeted if the coalition became effective. The coalition had become effective. The second breach came through the floor. 3 figures in gray chapel livery with the stars removed, the uniform of people who had decided uniforms were evidence, rose from a supply tunnel that coalition surveyors had marked sealed and that order surveyors had apparently reopened during the march south. They carried no banners. They carried cores primed for terminal discharge. Suicide squad grammar. Seraphine had read the assessment Kale had not shared with the hall. 40 for diplomacy. 50 for us. She had used 50. Outside, the battle continued with the particular roar of 250,000 organisms learning to move as one. Inside, the tent became a room where sound arrived late. The first attacker discharged at 4 meters. Seraphine was already not where the discharge expected her to be. Space affinity repositioning, not elegant, not academy form, the version she had refined in frontier corridors where elegance was what you performed after you survived. Light flared along the pavilion's inner ridge. Not Voss radiance yet. Warning geometry. A blinding line that forced the second attacker to adjust footing on the map table he had not expected to be standing on. Kaelin moved. Not toward the attackers. Toward the charter copies. Seraphine filed that without comment. It was the most generous political act she had observed in 19 years of life, and she did not have space to admire it. The third attacker reached terminal threshold. She met him with Voss radiance at half extension, enough to disrupt the discharge pathway, not enough to spend what she knew she might need. The crystallized light shards fixed in space between his ribs and his core channel. He detonated anyway. The partial discharge took his upper body, and the Eastern map table and 3 autonomy clauses. Beth's envoy had spent 2 weeks negotiating. The envoy did not flinch. Another file. Useful. Kael held the battlefield and did not come. This was the part that would look like abandonment in a report written by someone who measured loyalty in proximity. He was routing a demon spear through the Kareth border seam that would have cut the Coalition's medical corridor in half if someone had not seen it forming 14 seconds before the unit commanders did. He was speaking through 4 relay channels simultaneously with the dry precision of a man who had decided that the most dangerous thing he could do for the people in the tent was leave them without the organism he had become. Seraphine understood this. Understanding did not make the tent quieter. The second wave came through the roof. 6 attackers, not 3, the squad had split because suicide grammar required redundancy. 2 targeted the delegates. 4 targeted her. The delegation was not military. The delegation was the point. She moved between them because that was the only geometry available. Voss radiance at 3/4. The pavilion filled with fixed light, not brightness in the ordinary sense, but spatially anchored radiance that turned the air into a lattice of potential strikes. An attacker reached Kaelin. She was there. Rapier through the wrist, light purge along the nerve channel, space fold that put the man's own blade into his companion's thigh. Not clean. Clean was for tournaments. The man's core began terminal cascade. She caught it with radiance geometry at full extension for the first time in her life, and held the cascade in a cage of light for 4 seconds, while Yarick's general pulled Valdane's proxy behind the bolted table. 4 seconds was a long time to hold someone else's detonation. Her gold aura was not designed for 4 seconds. It was designed for bursts, academy demonstrations, frontier engagements, the Malachar fight where she had emptied herself and still stood. Sustained full radiance was a theory on paper in the Voss archive. Sustained full radiance in a command tent with 6 terminal cores and a coalition's political spine was something else. She sustained it. The breakthrough did not announce itself. Gold did not become diamond in a flash of triumph. It became diamond the way ice became water when the temperature had been wrong for long enough, a structural change that had been accumulating beneath the visible surface until the surface could no longer pretend. Her core clarified. Not who she was, she had known that for years, filed and unfiled, argued with and accepted. What she was for. The cage was not cruelty. The cage was the shape of a woman who had decided that certain things would not be destroyed on her watch if she had the power to prevent it. Delegates. Charter. The fragile, insulting, necessary machinery of people who did not trust each other learning to act in concert. Radiant cage crystallized at 400 meters. Large for diamond entry. Years of light space development refusing to be modest at the moment modesty would have been death. The domain did not feel like power outward. It felt like jurisdiction inward, a volume of space that answered to her the way a courtroom answered to a judge who had stopped performing authority and started exercising it. Within 400 meters of the command pavilion, crystallized light waited at every angle she had ever calculated and several she had not known she knew until the lattice finished settling. The remaining attackers detonated inside the cage. The detonations did not reach the delegates. They reached her. She absorbed the resonance the way a bell absorbed a hammer, not without cost, not without sound, but with the structural integrity of an instrument built for exactly this kind of violence. 3 terminal discharges in sequence. Her knees did not bend. Her hands did not shake. The violet in her eyes settled 2 seconds before the rest of her face followed. The particular tell Kale had catalogued years ago and never mentioned, because mentioning it would have required admitting he watched. Outside the cage, Coalition soldiers felt the domain settle over the command sector, like weather changing. Inside, Kaelin looked at the crystalline air and said, very quietly, well. Seraphine did not answer. She was breathing. Breathing was sufficient. Kale felt the diamond signature bloom in his Saint field the way a new star registered in a sky he already held, sudden, unmistakable, placed exactly where the political center needed it. For 3 seconds, he let the Dominion hold itself without his voice in the channels, a risk, a gamble, the kind only available when the organism had learned its own grammar well enough to breathe between instructions. Thornwald's core completed their interval. Hereth's southern wedge closed a gap he had been watching form since hour 9. Ironmark's northern flank received no new orders and did not require them because Harn had become, in the last hour, the kind of commander who understood implied architecture. He opened the relay channel. Status. Seraphine's voice came back stripped of performance, raw at the edges in a way she would repair before anyone else heard it. Tent secure. 6 attackers down. Delegates intact. Autonomy clauses need recopying. He said, injuries. Minor. Envoy's sleeve. General's pride. Pause. And you. Another pause. Diamond. He filed the word the way he filed breakthroughs that had been earned in rooms he had not been standing in, with respect, with something adjacent to grief for the cost he could not yet measure. With the immediate professional relief of a strategist whose political center had just become the most secure location on a battlefield measuring 4 square miles. Hold the cage as long as you can sustain it, he said. I know the limitation. I know you do. Channel closed. The coalition organism moved. The command tent, at the center of 400 meters of crystalline jurisdiction, became the one place on the field where the war's political future could still be written in the same afternoon. Seraphine stood at the bolted table with diamond aura settling into her bones like cold water finding the shape of a vessel. She recopied nothing yet. First she made sure the cage held. Then she made sure the delegates were still breathing. Then, only then, she allowed herself one breath that was not tactical. It was not relief. It was closer to acknowledgement. The room had asked who she was. She had answered. Outside, Kale directed an army. Inside, she held a cage of light around the fragile, insulting, necessary thing they were trying to save. Both were the same war. Both were sufficient. The distortion arrived before the wind changed. Kale felt it at the edge of Sovereign's dominion like pressure against glass, not an attack, not a signature he could parse into rank and intent, but a field condition that bent the air for miles in every direction radiating from the Emperor's tomb. Near transcendent. Not quite. Enough that soldiers on the eastern flank reported nausea without wounds and Lightning Corps reported their calibration team's instruments reading time intervals that did not match the watches on their wrists. The Phantom Emperor was not on the main battlefield. He had never intended to be. Valdorath's army was the anvil. The tomb was the forge. Kale understood this the way he understood sieges. You did not confuse the force holding the wall with the force building the weapon behind it. He said to Seraphine through the relay, July 7th hour 14, Tomb Center. Field distortion consistent with ritual architecture. He's performing something. She said, can you see inside? No. That was the problem. The Emperor's tomb sat at the old capital's heart. Caratha's name for a structure demons had avoided for 300 years the way humans avoided graveyards that still had occupants. The Coalition's march had pushed Valdorath's line back to the capital's outer ring, but the tomb itself remained behind layered defenses that had been accumulating since the unified empire's fall, demon wards, order-encoded barriers, materials in the outer walls that predated modern magical taxonomy and did not respond to contemporary analysis the way contemporary materials were supposed to. Kale's sovereign's eye covered the battlefield. It did not penetrate the tomb walls. He could see the distortion spilling from the structure like heat from a furnace. He could map every guard rotation, every supply channel, every demon unit locked in the disciplined formations that were wrong for demon culture and correct for 3 centuries of preparation. He could not see what Valdorath was doing in the chamber at the center. Seraphine said, "We go in." He said, "Yes." She did not ask whether he was certain. Certainty was not available. Decision was. The outer defenses were not a wall. They were a curriculum. First ring. Demon fighters in Valdorath's centralized command grammar, not berserk, not territorial, responding to signals Kale could read but could not always intercept before they became movement. He routed Lyra on the eastern flank to hold the approach corridor open while Thornwald's weather window collapsed into the afternoon's only usable lightning interval. She swore at him through the channel with the uncomplicated honesty of someone who had been promoted to disaster sergeant because she refused to treat disasters as metaphors. "Eastern flank is yours," he said. Finally something honest. Channel closed. Second ring. Order encoded barriers that reacted to Saint range perception the way skin reacted to a blade, not by stopping it, but by registering it and adjusting. Seraphine's radiant cage preceded them by 40 meters, crystalline jurisdiction eating through encoded resistance that had been built to repel gold aura and had not been recalibrated for diamond entry at 400 meters. The cage was costly. She sustained it anyway. Third ring. The material that predated modern understanding. Kale felt his dominion slide along the tomb's outer surface like a hand along stone that refused to admit it was stone. The walls were not opaque to physics. They were opaque to him. 300 years of empire had built a blind spot into the world's strategic map, and Valdorath had stood in that blind spot long enough to call it throne. Seraphine said, "I can feel him through the distortion." "Not see. Feel." He said, "Ritual phase?" "Active." He filed active. Active meant window. Windows closed. They fought through the outer ring in 41 minutes. Kale did not fight the way Damien fought, direct exchange, body as argument. He fought the way he had always fought, space folded, distances wrong for enemies, right for Seraphine's radiance geometry. Void echo recording the barrier patterns he could perceive and replaying them at reduced power to find the seams Valdorath's architects had not intended to be found. Saint Exhaustion was a ledger he kept without looking at, minutes of full dominion remaining, not hours, the will manifestation that had turned 250,000 soldiers into one organism now narrowed to a corridor wide enough for 2 people and a purpose. Seraphine's cage held the corridor. Her rapier work inside it was precise enough that demon fighters who entered the jurisdiction discovered, too late, that precision could be a kind of cruelty when the person wielding it had stopped performing composure and started exercising it. At the tomb entrance, a arch of black stone set into the hillside without ornament, because ornament was for people who expected visitors. Kale stopped. Damien was behind them. He had not been assigned behind them. He had assigned himself, which was Damien's grammar when the world's categories broke down into person and duty, and the person refused to let duty be an excuse. Damien said, "I'll hold the entrance." Kale said, "You don't have to." "I know. Not defensive. Not heroic." The flat statement of a man who had spent 2 years learning the difference between the weapon he had been and the person who might still choose what to protect. Seraphine looked at Damien. She said, "Hold it until we come back or until you can't." Damien said, "Yes." Lyra's channel crackled from the eastern flank, lightning strike, demon thrust repelled, core weather window closing in 9 minutes. Her voice was steady in the way voices became steady when steadiness was the only thing between your people and the arithmetic of collapse. Kale said, 9 minutes is enough. Lyra said, "It better be." They entered the tomb. The air changed immediately, not temperature, not smell, but temporal texture. Kale's dominion, which had covered miles, contracted around him like a muscle cramping. Inside the outer threshold, his saint perception still functioned, but the fidelity degraded with every meter toward the center, as if the structure were designed to make the world's most dangerous strategic sense blind on purpose. Seraphine's radiant cage contracted with his field, not by choice, by pressure. 400 meters became 200, 100, 50. The domain fought to maintain jurisdiction in a volume of space that resisted jurisdiction the way grief resisted argument. The distortion at the center pulsed. Valdorath was there. Not visible yet. Present the way a storm front was present before the rain, inevitable, shaped, moving along rules that had been in motion longer than most kingdoms had existed. They descended. The passage narrowed, stairs cut into black stone. No rail, the treads worn concave by feet that had not used them in centuries and still remembered weight. Seraphine's cage preceded them by a meter, crystalline jurisdiction scraping against the tomb's resistance like a blade along a whetstone. Each step cost her something Kale could read in the micro-delay between her breaths. Diamond was new, depletion was real. And the woman who had held a political center against 6 terminal cores had not done it without spending what she would need again before the day ended. He did not say save your aura. She would not have listened. She should not have listened. At the second landing, the inscriptions changed character, older symbols giving way to older still, a grammar that made his academy training feel like children's primer. Valdorath's ritual pulse strengthened. The distortion pressed against his sternum. Sovereign's eye registered movement in the chamber above, not Valdorath's body, the field around it, tightening, converging, the arithmetic of something 300 years in preparation approaching the final clause. Behind them, distant but present through stone, Damien's aura held the entrance threshold, steady, human scale, the stubborn signature of a man who had removed the order layer and kept the person. Lyra's lightning flashed once through the tomb's upper vents, a brief white punctuation in the afternoon's gray war. The eastern flank held. The entrance held. The tomb swallowed them deeper. Above, the battlefield continued, coalition organism moving, demon line bending, miles of war proceeding according to a plan Valdorath had written for enemies who did not become nervous systems. He had not planned for Kale. He had not planned for Seraphine at Diamond. He had had 300 years. Apparently, that had not been enough. Kale filed the thought without comfort. Comfort was not available in blind spots. Movement was. They moved toward the center, where the air distorted and the old emperor performed his last arithmetic on a world he had never stopped trying to save by destroying. The walls did not let Kale see. They let him approach. That would have to be sufficient. The chamber was smaller than the distortion suggested. Kale had expected cathedral scale, empire architecture, the grammar of a man who had ruled a continent and wanted his final work to fill the sky. Instead, a circular room 30 meters across, black stone floor worn smooth by feet that had not walked here in centuries, walls inscribed with symbols that predated the Order's founding and possibly predated the founding of kingdoms. At the center, a raised dais. On the dais, a man. The mask was gone. The face beneath it was old. Not aged in the ordinary way of people who had lived long and poorly. Old in the structural way of something that had been human and had spent 300 years refusing the terms of human limitation. Skin like parchment over bone that still moved with combat grammar, economy, placement, the muscle memory of violence refined across eras until it stopped looking like violence and started looking like inevitability. Valdorath I, the Phantom Emperor. A man who had loved an empire and watched it die and had never forgiven the world for surviving wrong. He looked at them without surprise. Surprise was for people who had not spent 3 centuries preparing for this afternoon. His domain activated before either of them spoke. Kale felt it as a change in the room's temporal texture, not slower, not faster in measurable seconds, but wrong in perception. Inside the radius, Valdorath's movements arrived before the eye's accounting could complete. A step that should have taken a meter took the decision space of half a meter. A feint occupied the future slot where a block should have been. The domain did not break physics. It broke the coalition between perception and response. Sovereign's eye, which had covered miles an hour ago, stuttered inside the chamber like a lantern in wind. Kale could still see movement, aura channels, the corrupted intertwining of dark and light in Valdorath's core that should have been impossible and had had 300 years to settle into a stability no textbook acknowledged. He could not see with the fidelity required to direct a war. He could barely see with the fidelity required to direct himself. Seraphine's radiant cage met the time warp field and buckled at the edges. Not collapsed. Contested. Her diamond jurisdiction fought for space against his near-transcendent distortion the way 2 legal systems fought for the same territory, neither yielding, both expensive. Valdorath said. His voice was measured, old, carrying the cadence of someone who had been giving commands since before their grandparents' grandparents were born. You came personally. Good. I would have been insulted by proxies. Seraphine said, the coalition doesn't have proxies for this. No, Valdorath said. It has you. And him. His eyes moved to Kale without hurry. The defective baron who was never defective. The sovereign core the records forgot to fear because records are written by people who need the past to be simpler than it was. Kale did not answer. Answering would have been theater. He was already moving. The fight was long. That was the first fact. Not long in the sense of endurance contests where two powers traded blows until one ran out of arithmetic. Long in the sense of a conversation conducted in violence between three minds that refused to be stupid. Valdorath did not waste movement. Kale did not waste setup. Seraphine did not waste radiance on display. First exchange, Valdorath closed distance in a perception gap Kale almost died in. Void Echo recorded the pattern, not the strike, the spatial precondition of the strike, and replayed it at 60% fidelity to predict the second gap before it opened. Prediction was not prevention. Prevention required void dominion. Kale opened a pocket. Space folded outside the time warp's jurisdiction, a zone 3 meters across where conventional physics reasserted itself because he insisted. Inside the pocket, his perception cleared for 2 seconds. He struck from the pocket, folded out, folded in again before Valdorath's corrupted light/dark braid could follow the transition. Saint exhaustion ticked. He ignored it the way he ignored pain that had not yet become injury. Second exchange. Seraphine's Voss radiance met Valdorath's light component and resonated destructively, not purification, not healing, the violent harmony of two frequencies that should not have shared a waveform but did, corrupted and clean, producing disintegration along the seam. Valdorath's expression shifted for the first time. Recognition. Perhaps memory. Light magic had been his before it was anyone's in the modern kingdoms. He had corrupted it to survive. She struck it with what it had been. The chamber's inscriptions flared. Third exchange through seventh, territory traded in meters. The dais cracked. The black stone floor acquired furrows from radiance shards fixed in space until Valdorath's time warp rotated them into his own flank. Kale's pockets multiplied burst combat, spatial anchors outside temporal distortion, each pocket costing psychic tax the power system Bible would have called fragmentation risk if anyone had been writing textbooks in the middle of an emperor's tomb. Somewhere in the fifth exchange, Valdorath's corrupted light lashed out in a braid Seraphine met with pure radiance geometry, the destructive resonance peeling corruption like old varnish, exposing the human channel beneath for one exposed second before the emperor sealed it again. Kale used the second. That was their grammar now. She opened, he struck. The chamber recorded the collaboration in cracked stone and spent aura. He fought in bursts because sustained presence inside the time warp was death with a delay. Seraphine fought in jurisdiction because the cage was the only geometry that held meaning against a domain designed to make geometry lie. Valdorath fought like a man who had already fallen once and had decided falling was a category error. Our unknown. Watches were decorative inside the chamber. Kale's dominion contracted to the pockets and the spaces between them. Seraphine's cage shrank to 20 meters, then 15, sustained by diamond while that was not infinite. Valdorath's movements grew slower, not weaker, but accumulating damage the way empires accumulated cracks, hairline fractures in the corrupted core's braid, light component shredded by resonant strikes, dark component bleeding stability into the room's ancient stone. He was near transcendent. He was not invincible. He had been preparing for a world that did not include a sovereign core integrated with void dominion at stage 3. Kale opened the largest pocket yet, 10 meters, 10 seconds of linear time reclaimed from the warp, and used all of them. Not a single strike. A sequence recorded across 7 years of watching Seraphine's Voss radiance, Damien's corrupted hero patterns, Malakar's Saint grammar, Demon Lord's territorial magics, and his own spatial theory compiled into the only combat language he trusted. Setup, 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 conclusion. The conclusion was not dramatic. It was a spatial severance along the corrupted braid seam while Seraphine's radiance held the light component in destructive resonance and Valdorath's time warp stuttered because even near transcendent domains required a core that functioned. The core functioned less. Valdorath staggered. Not fell. Staggered. 300 years of not falling had taught him what falling was before his body remembered. Kale's nose bled. Sane exhaustion was no longer a ledger. It was a wall approaching. Seraphine's hands were steady. Her aura was not. Diamond cost. They had paid. He had paid more. The chamber waited for the next exchange. The next exchange would be the last. Kale knew this the way he knew endings, not by prophecy, by arithmetic. One of them did not have enough minutes left. It was not Valdorath. Not yet. Valdorath straightened. Blood, old blood, dark, wrong color for human, traced the parchment skin. The time warp domain stuttered again. Seraphine pressed the advantage, not a strike, a resonance pulse along the corrupted light braid. Voss radiance, finding the frequency Valdorath's 3-century corruption had been trying to hide inside. The chamber's ancient inscriptions answered with light that was not hers and not his, but the memory of a magic older than both their arguments. Kale opened one more pocket. 2 seconds. Enough for a severance that did not kill, yet, but removed the domain stability by a margin measured in centuries, finally running out. He said, "You're enough." 2 words. Not praise. Assessment. The assessment of a man who had spent 3 centuries ensuring the world would not produce people who could stop him and had failed. Kale filed enough. Enough was not victory. Enough was permission to continue. He continued. Valdorath fell the way ancient things fell, slowly, with the dignity of mass that had been upright so long the ground seemed like a new country. His knee met the black stone first. Not collapse. Placement. Even descending, he chose the geometry. Seraphine's radiant cage contracted to 5 meters, barely jurisdiction, barely sustainable. Her rapier was lowered, but not sheathed. Diamond aura at the edge of depletion did not permit the luxury of assuming an emperor was finished, because an emperor's knee had touched floor. Kale stood 3 meters away with blood on his lip and sane exhaustion ringing in his bones like a bell struck too hard. Void Dominion's pockets had collapsed. Sovereign's eye flickered at the margins of the chamber, partial, unreliable, enough to confirm the core signature weakening, but not enough to predict the next movement. Valdorath's breathing was audible. 300 years of practiced control and still breathing because bodies insisted. Kale could have finished it. The arithmetic was simple. 1 spatial severance along an already fractured seam. 1 radiance strike into the corrupted light channel. 1 emperor gone and a war that might begin learning how to end. He did not move. Seraphine looked at him. Not question. Trust in the specific form of waiting for a decision she could not make for him. Kale said, "The convergence is coming again." The chamber's distortion eased by a fraction, as if the time warp domain required its master's attention to lie convincingly. Valdorath lifted his head. Blood at the corner of his mouth. Eyes that had commanded continents and suicide squads and demon lords with the same measured patience. He said, "Yes." Not defiance. "Fact." Kale said, "We will handle it differently than you did." Valdorath's mouth moved, almost a smile, almost grief. "You can't know that." Kale said, "I know it." Silence. The inscriptions on the walls pulsed once, faint, as if the chamber itself had been holding breath. Valdorath looked at him for a long moment, the assessment of a man who had spent 3 centuries reading people the way Kale read battlefields, searching for the lie, finding none. Then something in the old face softened. Not kindness. Relief. Impossible relief, arriving in the last seconds of a life that had not permitted relief for 300 years. He said, "Then there's something I need to tell you." Seraphine's grip tightened on her rapier. Kale said, "Tell it." Valdorath's voice thinned, but did not break. The convergence is not a siege. It is pressure, exterior, directionless, accumulating along the field's weakest seams. Every 300 years, approximately. The unified empire I built was politically whole and spiritually hollow. The pressure found the hollow places. It pushed through. Not invasion. Penetration. The field tears where integration failed, where aura types refuse each other, where kingdoms hoard capacity, where demon and human territories treat the border as a wound instead of a membrane. He coughed. Dark blood on black stone. You cannot wall it. You cannot reset it. You must make the field whole in the way I failed to make it whole, not by subtraction. By connection that does not lie about difference. He stopped. Not from pain. From completion. The last word hung in the chamber like smoke. His eyes remained open. The near transcendent signature dissolved the way a storm dissolved, not vanishing, dispersing, becoming weather instead of will. Gone. The chamber exhaled. Time perception corrected itself in Kale's body like a joint popping back into place, painful, immediate, the ordinary world's rules reasserting with the petty authority of physics that had never actually left. Kale stood in the silence. Victory was not a sensation. It was an absence. The absence of an enemy who had organized 300 years of war into a single afternoon's arithmetic. Seraphine lowered her rapier. She said, "Kale." He did not answer. The sovereign core, which had been quiet through most of the fight, present, warm, the relationship that was also him, cracked. Not metaphor. Sensation. Hairline fractures along channels he had felt since Diamond, since Awakening, since the Saint breakthrough on a battlefield that had asked what he believed in absolutely and received an answer it could not refuse. The cracks spread through his chest like ice in water, silent, total, reorganizing. He had one thought, dry and precise as everything else. This is not death. Then the floor moved. Or he moved toward the floor. The distinction lost meaning. His knees failed with the politeness of a body that had run out of ledger entries. Seraphine crossed 3 meters faster than Voss Radiance geometry should have permitted at depleted Diamond. She caught him. Second time. The first had been a corridor in year 12, extraction aftermath, crisis grammar, hands under his shoulders, professional proximity dressed as necessity. This was not dressed as anything. His weight arrived in her arms, and she held it with the furious competence of a woman who had spent years refusing to admit she would choose this person, and had run out of reasonable excuses for silence. His head against her collar. Blood from his nose on her sleeve. She said, "Not here. Not now." He was unconscious. The chamber did not argue. She carried him, partially, supported, the geometry of 2 people where one could not stand alone, to the tomb entrance. The stairs up were longer than the stairs down had been. Damien was still there. Burned hands. Blood not his own on his coat. He looked at Kale's face and did not ask questions that would have wasted seconds. He said, "Lyra's flank held. Entrance held. Is it?" "Done," Seraphine said. One word. Damien closed his eyes once. "Open. Medical. Thess is at the perimeter camp. Move." Damien moved. Ahead of them, Coalition runners were already shouting relay codes Seraphine recognized from the Joint Command grammar, sector advance, demon line fracture, political center status query. The afternoon light outside was wrong, too ordinary for an emperor's death. The battlefield's roar had changed timbre, coalition advance, demon line breaking. The particular sound of an army discovering its opponent's center had stopped commanding. Somewhere to the east, Lyra's lightning core fired one last calibration strike into empty ground because habits died slower than emperors. Kale's breathing was shallow. The core cracks were visible to aura sense as flickers beneath his skin, golden fractures pulsing with reorganizing light, painful, necessary, the sovereign path doing what the sovereign path did when pushed past every limit simultaneously. Seraphine did not set him down until Thess met them at the medical tent's threshold. Thess looked at Kale's core flicker and said a word in medical field terminology that translated, in Seraphine's experience, to "this is worse if it's truer." Seraphine said, "Save him." Thess said, "That's the plan." Not reassurance. Commitment. Seraphine transferred weight to the medical cot with hands that did not shake because shaking was not available. Thess's runners cleared space without being asked. 4 lines, core observation crystals, the particular clutter of a field hospital that had been expecting catastrophe and had received a different category of catastrophe instead. She stood at the tent flap for one breath. The coalition still needed its political center. The war still needed its nervous system. even unconscious. She would return to both. First, she looked at Kale's face, blood drying, eyes closed, 19 years old and carrying a core that the world had not seen in 3 centuries. She said, quietly, to him or to the air or to the part of him that might still be listening, I chose you. We are together. When you wake, I will say it where you can argue. Until then, know it. Not poetry. Statement. She went back to the command sector. The cage was gone, diamond depleted, but the delegates were still there. The war was still there. She held what remained. Behind her, thus began work on a core that was cracking into its next shape whether the world was ready or not. The Emperor's tomb stood empty at the capital's heart. The Phantom was gone. The Convergence's clock, unknown to most of the battlefield, had just received its first honest description in 300 years. Kale slept through all of it. For once, that was allowed. Evening settled over the Kareth perimeter the way evening settled over any battlefield that had not yet learned it was allowed to stop, gray light, smoke direction changing. The smell of spent cores mixing with cook fires thus had forbidden within 40 meters of the medical tents, and that soldiers lit anyway because cold was also a casualty. The coalition secured the tomb's outer ring before dusk. Not celebration. Procedure. Kalen's engineers mapped the entrance. Veth's envoy verified Demon Peace faction autonomy boundaries against ground actually held, not ground aspirationally claimed. Calder's supply teams rerouted medical priority to the sectors where terminal discharge wounds outnumbered blade wounds 2 to 1. The Order's suicide squads did not continue. Without Valdorath's centralized command grammar, the human remnants fragmented the way remnants always fragmented, into desperation without architecture. Seraphine held the command pavilion with charter copies re-inked and delegates who had almost died twice in one afternoon listening to her as if sound itself were a resource. She left twice. Both times for less than 4 minutes. Both times to the medical tent at the perimeter's eastern edge, where Thess worked under lamplight with the focused irritation of a surgeon who treated emperors and barons with the same professional refusal to dramatize. Kale had not woken. His core's reorganization was visible, not to ordinary eyes, but to anyone with gold aura or better who stood within 3 meters. Flickers beneath the skin, golden fractures pulsing in patterns thus, had started sketching on a field chart with the caption unprecedented, do not quote outside tent. The sovereign core was not breaking. It was rearranging. The quiet relationship between Kale and something that was also him becoming more present in a body that had been pushed past saint exhaustion and void dominion tax and the simple arithmetic of a 19-year-old who had fought a 300-year emperor in a blind spot and won. Thus said, without looking up from the chart, he'll live. Seraphine said, that wasn't a complete sentence. He'll live. The core will finish reorganizing or it won't. If it finishes, he wakes different. If it doesn't finish, he wakes anyway and we manage it. Thus, set down the pen. Same grammar as year 12. Worse numbers. Seraphine stood at the cot's edge. Kale's breathing was steady. His face was bloodless in the way of people whose bodies had delegated everything to a central project and would not be receiving visitor requests until the project completed. She said, I told him. Thess said, good. Not curious. Not approving in the sentimental sense. The professional acknowledgement of a woman who had watched 2 people perform partnership for years and had run out of patience for performances that wasted triage time. Seraphine said, I chose him. We are together. Thess nodded once. Then when he wakes, feed him and don't let him pretend he didn't hear. I won't. Thess returned to the chart. Seraphine returned to the pavilion. For minutes. Sufficient. Damien came to the medical tent at hour 19 with bandaged hands and the particular exhaustion of a man who had held an entrance not because he was the strongest person available, but because he had decided the entrance was his. He stood at the tent flap and looked at Kale. He said to Thess, is he alive? Unconscious. Core doing something rude. Damien said, good. He did not enter. He had learned, in 2 years, the difference between proximity that helped and proximity that satisfied the person standing. He said to Seraphine, who had followed the channel traffic that reported his movement, Lyra held the eastern flank until hour 16. Core weather window closed. She cursed you with vocabulary I didn't know she had. Seraphine said, I'll apologize in writing. She prefers insults delivered in person. Damien paused. I held the entrance. I know. I would hold it again. I know that too. He left. Evidence filed again. The world not entirely awful. Lyra arrived at hour 21 with soot on her cheek and lightning static still in her hair. She looked at Kale through the tent opening without entering Thess's jurisdiction, respected even by disaster sergeants. She said, Saint Exhaustion? Thess said, Saint Exhaustion plus core reorganization plus idiot heroics. So normal, but more. Thess said, yes. Lyra looked at Seraphine. He going to be insufferable when he wakes? Undoubtedly. Good. Insufferable means functional. Lyra's voice softened by a fraction, the version of softness she permitted herself, which was indistinguishable from honesty. You held the tent. I heard. Diamond. Seraphine said, yes. Kale's going to pretend he's not impressed. Yes. He's impressed. I know. Lyra left to find food and someone to insult into morale. Gareth came at hour 22 because stairs were no longer his grammar, but sitting in a chair near a map was, and the coalition had established a forward advisory post in a supply wagon with the master map bolted to a board across 2 barrels. He did not come to the medical tent. He sent a message through Calder. Stop looking at him like that. He's not dead. Seraphine read it once. She sent back, I know. Gareth's reply arrived in 4 words, good. Hold the map. She held the map. From the pavilion, she could not see the medical tent. She could see the tomb's outer ring, the coalition perimeter, the demon units in the peace faction sector who had stopped fighting when Valdorath's signature vanished and had not yet decided what that meant for 300 years of avoidance. Veth's channel opened at hour 23. The demon's human language was always slightly wrong in the way translation was wrong when the speaker's mouth had been shaped for sounds humans did not make. Veth said, the Emperor is gone. Seraphine said, yes. The territories are in shock. Not grief. Shock. 300 years of avoidance ended in one afternoon. A pause, Veth calculating honesty. Peace faction holds. War faction fragments. I will need autonomy verification on ground, not paper, within 48 hours or the fragments will write their own paper. She said, you'll have it. Another pause. You killed the man who made my people's politics a tool. We killed the man who made everyone's politics a tool. Yes. The word arrived without warmth and without hostility. The reliable counterparty grammar Kale had built the southern ceasefire on. Tell the Baron when he wakes. The demon territories will have questions. I prefer questions to war. Channel closed. Kaelin found her at the pavilion's edge hour 24, midnight approaching, July 8th becoming July 9th, the coalition's first day with a dead emperor and a living problem. He said, the charter holds. She said, yes. The delegates want language about victory. They can have language. They don't have certainty. Kaelin looked toward the medical tent's lamplight. He did this. We did this. She corrected without heat. The coalition. The organism he built on a border field. The tent I held. The entrance Damien held. The flank Lyra held. The northern line Harn held. All of it. Kaelin accepted the correction. He had become a king who could. He said, when he wakes, the coalition will need its nervous system again. I know. He'll argue that he wasn't the nervous system. That it was the architecture. Yes. Tell him the architecture required him. She said, I will. Kaelin left. The pavilion was quiet. Delegates slept in chairs they would deny sleeping in. Maps dried. Autonomy clauses waited for morning ink. Seraphine walked to the medical tent one more time. Not 4 minutes. Longer. Thess looked up. He hasn't stirred. Core flickers slowing, reorganizing phase, not crisis. Thess studied her face. You should sleep. No. Seraphine. I'll sleep when he's stable or when the coalition doesn't need me. Whichever is second. Thess did not argue. She had known Seraphine long enough to know which battles were worth the triage time. Kale lay on the cot with golden fractures pulsing slower beneath his skin, painful, visible, necessary. His hand rested on the blanket edge. She adjusted it without thinking, the way she adjusted charter pages and map corners, precision as care, care as precision. She said, quietly, to him, I meant it. No performance. No audience. The tense lamplight and a man who might or might not hear. I chose you. We are together. The rest is paperwork and war and whatever the convergence turns out to be. But that part is decided. She sat in the chair Thess had placed at the cot's side. Outside, the Kareth perimeter held. Demon territory shocked themselves awake 300 years late. The coalition's political center breathed in a pavilion that had almost fallen and had not. Kale slept through reorganizing pain and the first honest description of the world's next catastrophe. Seraphine kept watch. Not because duty required it. Because she had chosen to. That was sufficient for July 9th's first hour. The war was not over. The Emperor was. The rest would arrive on its own schedule. She waited.